Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's live Illuminate. Just going to give a few minutes to see if we have some people showing up. I have not done a live for a very long time, about 2.5 years, I think. And when I went to go live tonight, there was so much that had shifted, so much that had changed in order to connect Zoom to Facebook. And so I'm actually coming to you live from my cell phone because it was the only way I could figure out how to do it. But here I am. And I feel like this is kind of how the last 2.5 years have gone, is that I have this kind of plan in my head as to what's going to happen, how it's all going to play out, and then life happens and I get to choose how I'm going to react to it, how I'm going to respond to life, and yeah, we all get to choose. So essentially, welcome. I see there's lots of numbers coming on here, and very excited to be able to chat with you guys again and to share what's been coming up for me, and also to share some awesome people over the next couple of weeks that have helped me on my own journey, that have shared their gifts with me and illuminated the path with me in such magical ways. I need to just take a deep breath because I can feel a lot of really excited energy that's coming in. Hello, Julie and Lynn and Janice and Deborah. So nice to have you guys all here. So essentially, what do I want to talk about today? Hey, Carol. I called this kind of speaker series Illuminate because over the past 2.5 years, I have definitely gone into my own kind of, I don't want to call it states of darkness, although that's like the best human language that I have to talk about it. So over the past 2.5 years, it's been a lot of unlearning. It's been a lot of disconnection from patterns, disconnection from parts of myself that once ran the show, and coming back to a deeper sense of knowing and a deeper sense of understanding who I am and why I am in this world. And it all started with me. I don't know if you guys were around at this point in time, but in February of 2022, I was doing a meditation. And in that meditation, I had a woman appear to me, and when she appeared to me, she just said, remember. And I was like, okay, remember what? And she said, remember again. And I came out of that meditation holding on to the energy of, I need to remember. I need to remember. But what do I need to remember was kind of the big question that I had. And actually, because I'm on my phone, I get to show you, and maybe this is why I had to use my phone tonight. On my wall here in my office, that is the picture that I drew of the woman in the meditation that came forward and told me to remember. And that was the beginning of the kind of undoing, of the unlearning, of the stepping into the unknown in order for me to remember. And there was different parts that started to come forward very slowly of things that I was remembering. And for probably the first year and a half, I was really remembering a lot of the pain of my human experience, a lot of the childhood experiences, past life experiences, those sorts of things that really took me down into the depths of my heart, or what I thought was the depths of my heart. And it just felt like I was in this stage of just remembering the pain, and at the same time releasing the pain that was coming up at that time. And the more I was remembering those painful experiences and really allowing myself to hold compassion for those parts of my experience, the more I started to actually remember my light. And the more I started to actually remember my love, and the more I started to actually remember my joy. And it wasn't coming from a state in the mind of just saying like, oh, yes, I can love, or oh, yes, I'm so joyful, or anything like that, or I know I have to be positive. It was coming from a really embodied state, a really I'm going to call it a sense of knowing that was happening inside of me. And I share that with you because I had to go into the beginnings of, I can't even say the beginnings. I had to go deeper into my healing. I had to go deeper into my heart and the painful experiences that I had gone through. I felt like, I've been doing healing work since 2006, so it's not like I'm a newbie or anything like that. And yet, when I was doing the healing work prior to 2022, I was really just kind of skirting on the upper layers of the healing. So I was doing the things that helped me to feel good for the time being. And even though there was all of this rumbling that was happening underneath the surface, I would have, a healing session and it made me feel good again. It didn't take away the rumblings underneath. And that's after that woman came forward in the meditation and told me to remember. And then I stepped into the compassion key class, and then I went into the remembering and the undoing and the unknowing. And it really was a really impactful year. And then for many of you that know, last June, we went on what was supposed to be our Camino, and it did not turn out the way that we had planned. And even though I had stepped into this kind of space of being neutral about a lot of things in life, and I literally said that like 3 days before we left, like, I just feel so neutral now, and I was feeling really good. And when our Camino went down the way it went down, I went from being in a place of neutrality into a place of deep shame, deep judgment, deep anger, deep grief, disconnection from God, disconnection from my gifts, disconnection from the light, disconnection from everything. Like, I went down deep. And I don't like to say that things have to happen for a reason. I don't believe suffering has to happen for a reason. And yet, a year later, I can see that the suffering that I went through, essentially the suffering that I chose to go through because of my complete disconnection to light, because of my deep disconnection from spirit and my questioning of everything, it allowed me to go even deeper into the depths of my heart. I actually said to my husband, probably last August, there's a song by Ocean called Spirit Lead Me. And the song essentially goes, Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk across the waters wherever you may lead me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. Deeper than my feet could ever wander. And my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. And so that's the song. And as I heard that, because we didn't get to walk our Camino, and I had all my eggs in one basket for the Camino. But without that ability to walk, I thought, I'm not going to meet this piece of myself that I thought I was going to find on the Camino. But hearing that song last August, hearing it differently is what I should say, because I'd heard it before, but last August, as I was sitting there listening to it, the message became so much clearer to me to take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. And in that moment, I felt like this big wave of sadness that came over me, this kind of deep grief, but it wasn't grief about what hadn't happened. It was grief over my inability to want to actually go deeper within myself. And so I made a commitment with God at that time. And I said to God, okay, God, take me deeper into my heart. If I was supposed to walk 819 kilometers across Spain to meet myself, then allow me to go 819 kilometers into the depths of my heart so that I can get to know myself, so that I can fall in love with myself, so I can meet the true me that's not limited by these human experiences. And then God delivered. And I giggle about that because when I say God delivered, it's not like life was just suddenly handed to me on this silver platter, or that everything just started working out and I could just meet myself. It meant I was going even deeper into my grief, going deeper into my anger, going deeper into my sadness, and all of those kinds of emotions are human emotions, so that I could meet who I was underneath it all. And it has been such an epic journey since last August, and it's really blown my mind, the level of deeper understanding that I've been able to get because I didn't get the thing that I thought I needed. And I share that with you guys today because often we have these ideas, or at least for myself, we have these ideas of what it is we're supposed to be getting out of life, or these goals that we have for ourselves, these plans that we have for ourselves. And then life happens. And sometimes when life's happening, it means that the goals that you have for yourself, they're not happening. Or the people you thought were going to be in your life forever are no longer showing up. Or maybe they pass away, or maybe your health starts to suffer, or whatever. And we attach ourselves to these stories, we attach ourselves to these experiences, and we become the suffering that we're experiencing. And my husband actually said to me, it was probably last August as well, I was having another crying fit about not being able to do the Camino, about my dreams being broken, about this longing of wanting to be able to express myself in the world, and just really feeling depressed and down on myself. And my husband looked at me and he said, I can't help you with this. This is something you're going to have to figure out on your own. And there was a part of me that was like, what? No, I need you to save me right now. And then there was this other part of me that was like, he's right. He's absolutely right. I am the only person who can figure this out. I'm the only person who can save me. And I think it was probably after that the Spirit Lead Me song came forward in my consciousness for me to be able to hear it and to understand the journey that my soul was actually wanting to take. That it was never about walking the 819 kilometers across Spain, but ultimately it was about me learning or connecting with these deeper parts of myself and these deeper understandings of what it means to have a connection with God, and what it means to have unshakable faith, and what it means to trust in things that are no longer existing. I've been a medium for, 10 years, 11 years, something like that. And last July, I quit it. I said, I can't do this anymore. And it became so apparent to me as we were leaving the Camino that no, I don't want to go home and do more mediumship. I just can't. And I thought it was mediumship that was the problem. And that I had to stop that. But really what the problem was all of the grief that I was holding on to inside of me. And I was helping other people with their grief. And I was, sharing messages with them from their loved ones. But I was so trapped in so much of my own grief that was not connected to the Camino. It was, my dad died when I was 16. And so grief around finding out that he had cancer and then having him pass away on us. I had a molar pregnancy right around the same time, which was losing a baby, and moved out of my family home and disconnected with family. And so there was all this grief that was connected to that. And then grief around the loss of my innocence as well. And like I said, I've done so much healing through the years. But a lot of those experiences, it was just kind of like, well, that was life. That was just how it was. That was just how it all played out. And I'd always disregarded it or bypassed it or allowed it to be this kind of blind spot in my reality. And so I had to face that. And I had to allow myself to feel that. And for so much of us, we don't give ourselves the space to feel it. The feelings are uncomfortable. The feelings are not good. They don't feel good in the body. They don't feel good to express. At the same time, a lot of times we judge ourselves on what those feelings are. We judge ourselves on what those experiences have been, as though those experiences deem us as worthy or unworthy, or deserving or undeserving. And then, of course, there's the shame in that this is what our experiences have been, and also perhaps shame on that these are the mistakes that we've made in our lives, or these are, I guess, kind of how we're expressing ourselves in our lives. And I know I've worked with a lot of clients using the compassion key and other modalities, and we all have had these horrendous experiences that have molded us and have shaped us and have imprinted these beliefs on us. And it's almost as though we start to believe that the things that have happened to us matter more than the truth of who we are. And that's what my commitment was when I started 2024, was for me to remember the love that I am, for me to become the love that I want to see in the world. And I don't know that I could have reached that kind of level of understanding when it came to consciousness had I not been able to meet these really broken and or wounded parts of myself that had experienced this pain, and then I had to unravel from it in order to be able to reach these deeper levels of love. And I know that they say that your ability to grieve is connected to your ability to love. So the deeper you're able to grieve, the deeper you're able to love. The more you're able to love, the more you feel the grief when a loved one passes away. It's the same with like anger and peace, like we have to feel the full spectrum of emotions. And I know for myself, for a very long time in my life, I was really connected to feeling the happier emotions, the things that feel good. I really wanted to feel those and not so much the anger. I hated my anger. I didn't want to feel my grief because when the grief started, I couldn't get the grief to stop. But when I finally gave myself this permission to hold space for the grief, when I gave myself permission to express the anger out loud, it allowed me to actually go into the depth. You guys might be able to still hear me. How do I switch this back? We just had an emergency alert come in on my phone, so my apologies for the interruption, and hopefully this little one is found safe. So anyways, I'm back. But essentially what I was saying is that our wholeness, who we are as humans, is not just found in the love and light, but it's found in allowing ourselves to experience, to express the depths of all of our emotions, which means allowing yourself to go into the depths of your grief, to go into the depths of your anger, to go into the depths of whatever emotion it is that's coming up for you, but also understanding that that does not define you. And that's a part that I got lost in last year, was thinking that this experience of doing the Camino, that this was what defined me. And I disconnected from spirit, and I disconnected from the light. And it was a choice that I made because I was pissed at God. And I know I'm not the only human who goes through this, where you think life is going along great and then something horrendous happens and it's like, what the hell, God? Why would you be doing this? My apologies that I'm cutting out, Michelle. I'm doing my best to keep the connection strong here. My phone keeps telling me that the connection is slow. So my apologies on that. And I hope you can get whatever it is you're meant to get from this. So as humans, we do tend to get pissed at God and we go like, why? Why? Everything was aligning. Everything was going great. And then this thing happens. And I just learned just a couple of weeks ago, and it's part of the reason that I'm here live today. I've been in a new class, and in the new class that I'm in, the teacher said essentially, anytime you connect to something outside of yourself as being your source, you will go through a universal betrayal that takes you back to yourself. And so as soon as I heard that, I understood that that's what had happened for me with the Camino, that I had made the Camino the kind of thing that was my permission ticket for me to step into what I wanted to create for myself. So say in May of 2023, I wanted to do lives back then, but it was like, I'll start doing lives after the Camino. I'll start doing lives, I'll start writing my book after the Camino. I'll start doing public speaking after the Camino. I will allow myself to follow my dreams after the Camino. And so I lost who I was, thinking that the source was coming from the Camino rather than coming from within me, as though I needed the Camino to commit to me. And for myself, it was this big realization that every single time things have not worked out the way I wanted them to, I was connected to something outside of myself, thinking that is the answer for who I am. When the source is within me, the source is within you. We all have everything that we need within ourselves that will give us everything that we need in life. So I didn't need the Camino to be on here doing a live tonight. I didn't need the Camino to start writing my book. I've been writing for, I'm going to say about 9 months now. And I'm about a third of the way, I think, through the book right now. So we don't need anything outside of us to get started with our lives. And I was talking to another woman earlier this week, and I was expressing this to her, and she said, yeah, I've been waiting to lose weight before I can do this thing. And I know that there's so many of us that have this kind of thing, whatever that thing might be. We have this thing that we go, if I lose weight, then I can. If I walk the Camino, then I can. If I save up $10,000, then I can. And it's these parts outside of ourselves, but we are the abundance. We are the source. We are our own answer. And it's about tapping back into that and allowing ourselves to realize that we don't need anything outside of us to fill us up. And this comes, so funny thing is I didn't actually know what I was going to be talking about when I came on here tonight. I had a general idea of the things that I wanted to say and the things that I kind of wanted to get across. And now I feel like I'm kind of shifting gears a little bit. Because as I talk about these things within us, it brings me to the idea of creating conscious relationships, which is something that I'm really, really passionate about. Because for a long time, I was in relationships that were not conscious. They were not healthy relationships, or they weren't ideal relationships for what I wanted to express or experience in my life. And the more I've been able to meet these parts of me and remember the love that I am, remember the trust that I am, remember the abundance that I am, the more I've been able to create these conscious relationships, because I'm no longer hiding a part of myself hoping that the other person will accept me. I'm allowing myself to show up as I am, and in that other people are loving me. And it's most apparent in my relationship with my husband. Like we've always had what I thought was a really good relationship. And we really hit a wall back in 2020. And now we're 4 years later, but the wall in 2020 that we hit made us have to, I guess, be honest with ourselves about what we wanted to create with each other. And in that, we created this kind of deepening. But the thing that was different in this deepening was I was no longer looking at him as him being the source for my happiness. I was taking accountability for my participation in our relationship, and he was also taking accountability for his participation in our relationship, and really owning everything that we were bringing to the table. And sometimes that meant that we were dealing with each other's traumas. And sometimes that meant that we were having to be honest about our own traumas, our own experiences, how we were receiving our conversations with each other. I've found out that I've got a little story maker in my mind, so I can hear something from somebody, and if the story maker is out to play that day, the story maker can create one sentence into like this big meaningful thing that isn't actually real. And to be able to ask the questions of like, so when you said this, did it mean this? And then have it reflected back to you that, no, that's not what was meant, is a really powerful, deeper understanding of communication and being able to be honest with each other about what those emotions are. And why do I share this with you guys? Because in our world today, there is so much shit going on. And I am seeing people left, right, and center that are getting pulled this way and they're getting pulled that way and they're believing this thing and they're seeing this thing. Or relationships have been so difficult over the past couple of years, or I'm seeing divorces that are happening or separations that are happening and breakdowns in families and all of this. And we're all just so pent up with all of this energy, with all of these emotions, with all of this like disconnect. And a lot of times there's a lot of finger pointing that's happening rather than taking accountability for what our own experiences have been or taking accountability for the emotions that are coming up for us. We're doing a lot of finger pointing, and that's okay. If that works for you, go ahead. Yet what I know to be different is that when I take full accountability for whatever emotion is showing up for me, I give myself a level of freedom to not be influenced by the shit that is going on around me. And so I can feel if I've got anger that's coming up, or if I have a trigger that's coming up, I can go, oh, this is interesting. Look at me, I've got this trigger. And let me go deeper into that. Let me take accountability for everything that I'm feeling within myself. And by doing that, I no longer have to wait for other people to change. I get to change within myself, and I get to deal with the trigger. I get to meet the part of me that's being triggered. I get to understand myself at a deeper level, and I don't have to get caught up in that tangle of whatever the outside influence is. And that has been so freeing in like every single relationship that I'm in, because it's not that triggers don't happen anymore. It's that the trigger happens and I go, oh, let's get curious about this. What part of me is showing up this way? What part of me is reacting in such an emotional way or in such a, ignited? I think that's the word I'm looking for. So what part of me is showing up in such an ignited way that I am aware that I'm stepping away from my own peace, that I'm aware that I'm stepping away from my own neutrality? And when you can become aware of those parts of you that are showing up, that are having their voice kind of come up. So understand when you have an emotion that's showing up, when you're triggered by someone, whether it's in conversation, maybe you're being triggered by some of the things I'm saying here tonight or whatever, understand it's yours. There's no one that can make you feel a way. They can trigger an emotion to make itself known within your body, but they're not making you feel that way. There's something inside of you that's being ignited, and it's not being ignited because now you need to disconnect from this person and they're toxic and la 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 la. I know this is the language that we're using constantly now. But that trigger is coming up because there's a part of you that wants to be witnessed by you. There's a part of you that is wanting to be healed. There's a part of you that just wants a little bit of attention and love and compassion and non-judgment so that it can be heard, so that it doesn't have to be in hiding within you anymore. And when you can give yourself the ability to do that, when you can give yourself the ability to be with these parts. And I call them parts because I understand now that at one point in time in my life, and I think this is the beauty of the journey of life too, is that we can kind of see our own personal evolution. So in my personal evolution, at one point in my life, I would say things like, I am mad. This happened, this happened, this happened, and I am mad. And then as I started to evolutionize, I could have an experience happen and I could go, I'm aware of a mad, there's a feeling of mad inside of me, but I would still be in that madness. I wasn't disconnected from it at all. And now I'm at a point of going, there's a part of me that's mad because it's not all of me. There's a part of me that's sad because it's not all of me. There's a part of me that's grieving because it's not all of me. And by just simply breaking it up into these different parts. And I'm sure you are all aware of these different parts within you too, that you might, be in a situation, you go, well, it makes me sad and I'm disappointed and I'm angry about this, but I really do love them and I want to connect with them. So now there's a part of you that loves them, that remembers the truth of our oneness that we all have with another, with one another. Let me get my words straight there. And there's a part of you that realizes that their human experience isn't like their end game right now, that they're beyond what this human experience is. And there's a part of you that's mad, and there's a part of you that's disappointed, and there's a part of you that's sad. And all of those things can be happening all at the same time. But it does not mean that you have to just become madness, or that you just have to become sadness or disappointment or whatever. That you can separate yourself from the human experience, and you can allow yourself to remember your light, to remember the truth of who we are, which the truth of who we are is love. The truth of who we are is spirit. The truth of who we are is a soul that has absolutely no limits. And yet, most of us disconnect from that, and we become so attached to this human experience, and we believe that this human experience is the one that matters the most, that the shit that's happened to us is the shit that matters the most, and where we end up and what's happening on the news and who's in our life and what this person said to this person and what this person did and what your past has been and all of this sort of stuff. And I get it. I've been there. I've totally been so involved in the human experience that I disconnected from the spiritual experience. And I know there's people out there that will say, you know, we're spiritual beings here having a human experience. And then people will say, well, you have to remember we're here to experience being human. Yes, we are here to experience being human, but that doesn't mean to disconnect from the source altogether. So if you imagine like a fan, I'm using a fan as an example because it's a warm day here today, but if you imagine a fan thinking that it is the only one that's creating an airflow, okay? Because it's plugged into a source. And when it's plugged into a source, it might not remember that it's actually plugged into a source, because it's only the source that allows it to blow. Without an electrical source going into a fan, the fan will not blow. And most of us, or some of us, we come in as these fans thinking we're the ones that are doing all of the work, when really it's because we're plugged into force or source or force, whatever way you want to call it. But because we're plugged into source, we have the ability to do as we do. We have the ability to be here as a human being, and that's a miracle. Like, it is absolutely a miracle. And yet we forget sometimes that we're connected to source, that we're connected to this completely limitless abundance of source energy. You know, the same thing that created our cells, and the same thing that created the trees and created the grass and created thunderstorms and all of this magnificence. We come from that. We are that. And yet we forget, and we think all I am is this human experience. All I am are these things that happen to me. All I am are the emotions that I'm feeling right now, and yet we're so much bigger. And when you can remember that, and understand, I've forgotten it so many times, and there's even some days still that I forget, and I get so involved in this kind of human experience that I'm having, and I think that it matters. But if I said to you, you know, I was watching a TV show last night, and these characters were doing this and that and everything, and it was like I was there, and so now I believe I'm a part of that TV show, and I believe I'm part of those characters, and they really matter to me. You guys might think I was nuts, but we do it every day with life. We all have characters in our lives. Some characters are the villains. Some characters are the superheroes. Some characters are the funny sidekicks. Some characters are the supporting actors, and some characters are the background actors. And we have to remember, or I invite you to remember, you don't have to, because I realize everything gets to be a choice, but we have the choice to remember that all of that is an illusion. All of that is to reflect back to us how we can reconnect with source, how we can reconnect to the source that's within us, and allow ourselves to be the leading actor in our own lives. I know I've lost myself as the character. I thought, you know, I think it's Will Smith that I think it was when he was doing The Pursuit to Happiness, he gets so in the character that he's playing for the movie that he embodies it even when the movie is not under production. So I believe it was in an interview with his son, who played his son in the movie, that the son said, well, dad has been, in this role. I don't remember the man's name in the movie, but he's been in this role. So I asked him if we could grab a hot dog for lunch, and dad said we couldn't afford it. And dad's a millionaire, so dad should be able to afford it. But Will got so involved with the character, embodying every aspect of the character, that he lived as though he was broke, as though he was this man that was facing homelessness and stuff, so he could truly embody what those emotions are. And I feel like there's been times in my life where I have done that with whatever life has presented to me. When my dad passed away, I was the rebellious teenager, and I played that part really freaking well. I was the angry teenager, and I played that part really freaking well. And every once in a while, that character will show up again. And I got to see it last summer. And I think I am that character. I think that I am that person. I'm not that person. I'm so much more than that. And we all are. We're not what these experiences have been for us. We're not what life has been for us. We're not what other people have told us that we are. We're not any of those. We're all so much bigger. And I feel like it's time for us to remember that. It's time for us to illuminate. That's why I chose the word. But it's time for us to illuminate the path ahead of us, remembering that we are source, that we come from source, and we will return to source. And the time that we spend here, we can either choose to suffer, which I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, did not like it. We can choose to suffer, or we can choose a path of non-suffering, where we still have emotions that come up, because understand, we are human, but that we're not attaching ourselves to those emotions, or we're not allowing those emotions to become every single part of who we are. And it's in that choice that we get to start living a life of freedom, that we get to start living a life of abundance and a life of joy, because we start to realize that none of this really matters as much as what we might have thought it did. And also that it does matter, that you have the ability, because you come from source energy. And when you own that, when you're like, yeah, this is who I am the source, then that means you're the source of love. So you get to give love wherever you want to give love. And if you remember that you're the source of joy, that means you get to share joy or experience joy as much as you want, whenever you want, that there's no limit to it. There's absolutely nothing that can cap how much you have to give or how much you have to experience while you're here on earth. And so, like, to me, it just gets exciting, because it's like, okay, so what can I experience in my life? How can I create a limitless life for myself? So love without limits, joy without limits, connection without limits, support without limits. What does that look like to receive? And also, what does that look like to give out in the world? And if we can give it to just one person, the world becomes a better place. And I know these past 4 years on earth, they've been wild, like absolutely wild. And it's kind of crazy to think like this much change has happened in the world, and this much, these many shifts have like just happened in the world. And what was I saying? We've had all of these shifts. We've had all of these changes. This is what you get for getting me real, like, live and in person, is that I'm going to have thoughts that just kind of leave my head. Okay, so that thought is totally, totally gone. And that's okay. Ah, I remember now. Okay. So thanks for your patience. So over the past 4 years, it's been so crazy. And I know, like, I think it was in 2020 that I started saying, I don't want to be the bigger person anymore. I don't want to have to rise above everybody else's shit. And so I went and I joined them. And that's the choice that I got to make at that point in time. And I lost all sense of compassion. I lost all sense of love. I lost all sense of giving and really caring about other people. I just kind of went into this storm. And going into this storm, allowed me to go, oh shit, I don't want to be there. Like that is a really kind of stuck energy to be in. I need to shift this. And so then I started working on, you clear your own mind, you work on your mindset and all of this other stuff. And I know a lot of people have gotten stuck in these past 4 years, that they're still feeling divided. They're still feeling angry. They're still feeling brought down by things that are out of their control. They're still feeling a lot of unease, unpeace, chaos. And understandable, because there's a lot of shit going down in the world. There's a lot of things that are happening that are aggravating. And yet, not that I'm disconnected from it, not that I'm bypassing it, and not that I'm ignoring what these facts are. But when these things come up, I get to choose to actually go within and heal within whatever is coming up. I get to use it as an opportunity to understand myself more. And I feel like when we do that and we are able to remember that we are the source of our peace or the source of our chaos, we are the source of our joy or the source of our suffering, when you're able to do that, it doesn't really matter what's happening in the world because you remember. And then you get to also become the kind of beacon of light that you need to be in the world, or that the world is requiring from you to help another person. And it doesn't have to be huge. It could be, we gave a basketball to a group of teenage boys last week that needed a basketball at the school. And we have like 5 of them. So it's really not a big deal for us to give a basketball away. And yet, for these 3 boys, it was life-changing for them. They didn't have a basketball before that. Now they have a basketball. So it might not seem like a big deal to us, but to someone else, it could be life-changing. And we have an abundance of that. Just like we had an abundance of basketballs to give away. Like, who needs 5 basketballs when there's 2 basketball players in the house? But we've collected them over the years. And we all have this abundance within us to give away. We have an abundance of love. We have an abundance of joy. We have an abundance of peace or wisdom that we can offer to another human being. And if you're thinking that the world is shit right now, then I invite you to just go out and do something about it. What would make you feel good about giving something, whether it's your time, whether it's your energy, whether it's words of kindness, whether it's an object, whether it's food, whatever it might be. If you think there's a problem in the world, you can be the change that the world is needing. And I feel like most of us are looking at all of these kind of bigger problems in the world and going, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. But you can be the change for just one person. You can just be the change for yourself. I cannot encourage anyone enough to meet your triggers, to be with yourself as you're feeling these feelings and going through these things and everything, and just allowing yourself to be there for yourself, and the level of peace that you can come to by meeting these parts of yourself. That is truly a great gift for the world, because I can say right now that because of the past 2.5 years, everything that I've quote unquote gone through, everything that I've experienced, everything that took me away from myself and brought me completely back to a deeper understanding or a deeper knowing of myself, has been my greatest gift that I can offer to humanity. Because now I'm not showing up as someone who's filtered through my wounds. I'm not showing up as someone who is being triggered by other people's emotions or experiences or what is happening in the news or anything like that. I'm showing up as the light, as love, or whatever that I am. It's interesting, even as I say that, I can feel that there's a part of me that's going, hey, you're not there yet. You can't say this yet. And I had that brought up to me this past year when I said, I'm committing to be the love that I want to see in the world. I had someone point out to me all these times that I wasn't as loving as I might want to be. And they were taking notes from like 2008 and 2013 and 2015 and stuff, and going, see, you weren't loving here and you weren't loving there and you weren't loving there. And I could use that and I could go, yeah, you know what? You're right. I wasn't loving. So I guess now I can't be love. Or you could do what I did. And I went, yeah, you're right. I wasn't loving then, but now I have an awareness of what love actually looks like. And it's not love like, oh, I love you, or anything like that. It's like the consciousness of love, of all acceptance, of non-judgment. And am I perfect at it yet? Absolutely not. I just started this at the beginning of the year, and it's a lifelong commitment. I remember back in 2008, I made a commitment on New Year's to become less judgmental. And it's 2024, and I feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm judging things a lot less. And yet in the class that I'm in right now, he said something to the effects of don't judge life by its appearance. And I went, that's an area of judgment that I didn't realize I had. So I had been judging things as being good or bad, in the flow or out of the flow, in alignment or feeling stuck. And it just really amazed me that, I mean, it's been, how many years is that? 16 years. 16 years of me practicing non-judgment, and I still have these judgments coming up in an area that I never thought to even look at for judgments. And so I expect it to go the same way with love, is that as I commit to this, right now I'm kind of, learning how to ride a bike with training wheels and go, okay, so how does this work in this situation? And how does this work in this situation? Does this mean that if I'm not perfect at it, that I'm not the energy of love? Absolutely not. We don't expect, I'll use Simone Biles as an example. I seen a video of her when I think she was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and she was doing this gymnastics routine on a vault, and she fell off, and they were showing this kind of sadness that she had then, and then did like a comparison video of her doing a vault in this current Olympics game and her nailing the same jump that she had faltered on. And they're like, so don't base it on where you've been in the past, base it on where you are now. And I feel like that's true for all of us, that if we decide that, I want to be love. Okay, so you're going to run up against some edges. You're going to run up to these places in your experience where maybe love has been more difficult for you to express, but this is an opportunity to learn. It doesn't mean that you're not love. It does not mean that you're not light or you're not joy or whatever it is that you've kind of committed yourself to. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you're learning, that you're growing, and you get to see kind of where your tough spots are, where your blind spots might be, so that you can start to improve on it. And so I continue to commit to this kind of energy of love, this energy of just compassion for all human beings, compassion for the human experience, non-judgmental awareness of even noticing, where am I being judgmental? And it's not about shaming yourself or criticizing yourself or putting yourself down or stopping yourself because, you're not perfect at it yet, or whatever the case might be, whatever those mind monkeys might be telling you. It's about allowing yourself to realize that you're just learning. Every single one of us is just learning every single day. And these experiences show up in our lives so that we can learn more about ourselves, so that we can meet these different aspects of ourselves. And sometimes there's parts of us that are in hiding. There's parts of us that have been too afraid to come out, that have been too afraid to express themselves, that have been too afraid to be seen in this world. And so they are also learning as they come in. They're also learning. And if we can give ourselves that compassion instead of judging ourselves or criticizing ourselves or shaming ourselves on what that is, what a more beautiful world it would be. I know so many miraculous people. And honestly, this past 2, 3, 5, I don't even know. The more I sit here and think about it, the more I'm like, well, that person's been in my life for like 10 years, and that one 15 years, and that one 30 years. There's so many miraculous people that I know that have stopped themselves because they don't believe in themselves, or they doubt themselves, or they doubt their ability, or they think their voice doesn't matter, or they had this experience happen when they were 5 and they still hold on to that experience more so than the light that they are, and they're not able to see this kind of beauty that they have within them. And it's easy for me to see from the outside. I'm looking at them and I'm going, I don't know the pain that you know, but I see the light. I see everything that is so perfectly beautiful about you. And we can't make other people see that about themselves, but we can remind them about that about themselves. Yeah, there's just been so many miraculous connections and alignments that have been happening that remind me that this is what we're here to experience. It's not so much about what life has to offer us, but it's about these connections that we're creating with each other and these connections that we're creating with ourselves that really truly matter. And the more we can remember that, instead of focusing our energy on things that we can't change, but we focus our energy on creating these connections, on illuminating the path with the people around us, the better this world is going to be. And maybe it's not the entire world. Maybe it's just the world inside of your house. Maybe it's just the world in your community. Maybe it's just the world with your girlfriends, whatever it might be. But if you've got that one kind of safe haven, that one place where you're free to be exactly as you are, where you're free to express yourself exactly as you are, and allow other people to do the same, like, that's paradise. It's absolutely paradise. I'm seeing some of your comments here, and because I'm on my phone, it's a little bit hard. My arm's getting a little bit shaky because I've been holding it in one spot for so long. Thank you, Lynn. And thank you, everybody else who's been commenting and everything. I do appreciate it. If anybody has any questions about this, by all means, ask me some questions, whatever, or if you have something that's popping up for you, by all means, I'd love to hear from you guys as well. And as I'm waiting for some comments or questions to come in, I will share. So this Thursday night, and it might have to go over to like a recorded Zoom call instead of a Facebook Live where I would post a Zoom link, but unless I can figure out what's happening with Zoom and how I can get it to connect to my Facebook now. But this Thursday night, I have a very dear friend of mine, Shilpi Gupta, that is coming on. And she is a wonderful healer, practitioner, mother, and she'll be actually talking to us about motherhood, I believe. I haven't actually gotten her topic yet. And then next Tuesday night, we have the masterful Sonia Taveras, and I'm hoping I'm saying her name right. She is coming on to talk about her gifts and share her magic with us. She is such a beautiful soul inside and out, and I've been a part of a Mother Mary channeling of the Beacon of Light since May, and it has been absolutely life-changing. And she's just got this powerful voice and this powerful presence with each of these channelings. So I'm really excited for you guys to be able to meet her and witness her energy. And then the following week, we have Karen Love coming on, and she's a psychic medium, although she doesn't go by that term anymore, that I've been friends with for, I don't know, 15 or 16 years. And we've gone through periods where we connect with each other, and then we go through periods where we don't connect with each other. But she's been kind of evolutionizing my journey for the past year, just in little connections that we've had. So I'm really excited to get on here with her and talk to you guys about whatever it is that she's bringing forward. And there's also been some other amazing people that I've been in contact with. We don't have dates yet. Karen will be August 19th. So I'm so excited to be able to share all of these gifted ladies with you. And at some point, I do hope to hold almost like a sisterhood chat where there's a group of us that are mic'd up and we're just talking about whatever it is that's coming up for us, spirituality, connections, relationships, healing yourself, that sort of thing, and allowing others to witness as we go through these conversations, because there's almost like a deepening that's happening in spirituality right now, if we can call it that, or in human consciousness, that there's a deepening that's happening and almost like a new streamline of information that's coming through, or a deeper sense of knowing that's coming through. And I am so here for it. I'm so excited about it. I went a deep dive into human consciousness over the past year. funny enough, I think it was in 2022, I had put out a Facebook post and I had said to people, would you be able to recommend me some books that I absolutely must read? And someone had recommended to me to read Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. And when I added it to my Amazon cart, I seen a book by him as well called Transcending the Levels of Consciousness. I bought it and I put both of them on my shelf until November of this, or I guess last year now. So November of 2023, when I finished the Master and Circle Leader certification for Compassion Key, I picked up the book, I want to say the following day to start reading it. And it blew my mind open. Essentially, I'm sure you guys have seen the maps of consciousness, and you can Google it right now too if you wanted to. But essentially, he's got like a calibration level that's connected to each different kind of emotion that humans go through. And it's these levels of consciousness that we go through. And so the lowest one is death. And then the second lowest is shame, followed by judgment and guilt. And then there's anger, pride, fear. I don't remember all of them right now. But as I was reading this book, it really helped me to understand where my own consciousness had been stuck. And again, I go back to the parts, because it's not that all parts of me were stuck in shame, but there was different parts of me that were stuck in shame. And so as I'm going to try and use my other hand here that's not shaking and falling asleep. So as I was, what am I trying to say here? So if I had these parts of shame, so imagine like the divots in my hand right now, the spaces between my fingers were where I was holding on to the shame, and then the tips of my fingers. So each of these is where I was trying to reach up. I could not reach up any further because the anchor of shame was keeping me down here, if that makes sense. I wish I wasn't holding on to my phone right now so I could kind of use my other hand to show you. But essentially where we're anchored in, so where we're holding on to shame, it will prevent us from being able to reach this kind of higher level of consciousness or this higher level of understanding. So you might have experienced someone in your life, and I know I have, where they've gone through so much, say, trauma, and they carry such a deep level of shame. The only emotional level they can actually get to is anger. Like acceptance is completely out of their seeing field, or love completely out of their seeing field. They can operate from shame to anger and everything in between there, but they cannot actually jump above to acceptance, to love, to joy, to peace, or anything like that, because they're so anchored in. Now, it's not a them problem. It's not as though they have a choice, because they had these things that happened to them that kind of anchored them into that reality or that sense of self. And so it keeps them at this kind of lower energy. And then for some of us, we'll look and go, well, why wouldn't they just do this thing? Or why isn't this easy for them? I can see this so clearly. And yet they can't see it because their consciousness has actually been blocked. Their understanding of themselves has been blocked. So they've disconnected from love, not because of a choice, but because of life happening to them, and it's taken them down into that lower energy. And so as they start to heal that shame, it's like that energy, that spectrum starts to go up, and then they can actually open up to love. They can open up to joy. They can open up to peace, or whatever it might be. But it takes some time, and it takes a lot of undoing. Yes, Lorraine, the book is called Transcending the Levels of Consciousness by David R. Hawkins. And Hawkins is Hawkins. I can type it into the chat later as well when I'm not holding on to my phone. And so with these levels of consciousness, it has really opened my eye to understand where I've gotten blocked, but also where I can transcend to. And so I've got kind of like I've shot an arrow into the future, and it could be the future of this life. It could be the future of another life, but essentially where my soul wants to go. And it's to calibrate at the level of love just all the time, which is why I'm committed to love right now. But to go beyond that and to see what else is possible for me here on earth and into the next life and into the next life and into the next life, because it's always a state of learning and understanding and growing. What I found really interesting is as I was reading these different kinds of levels of calibrations and the different levels of consciousness, was that so they measure the levels of consciousness of the earth every year. And in 2019, we were at a calibration of 207 and neutrality is at 200. So as a level of consciousness for the entire planet, we're at 207. We're above the neutrality line, which means more people are accessing acceptance, joy, peace, love, all of these great things. 2020 happened. When they did the calibration at the end of 2020, we had dropped down to 190, which meant more people on the earth were below that neutrality level. And I know I've talked to so many people who know there was an energetic difference in 2020. There was a lot of even light workers and stuff that were dropping off of their light working, going, I can't do this anymore. The energy has shifted. Things have gotten too dark, etc., etc. And it's because we went so low on the calibration scale. And we hadn't been that low since the 1970s. So it was a vast jump for us. And yet, at the same time, there's so many people, because of that level of darkness or that lower vibration of calibration, the density or the lower density of the emotions that people were in, it made a lot of us go within and start really working on ourselves. Or we decided we need to unlearn this, or we need to change this, or we need to make these changes in our lives. And slowly, we've all been kind of working our way back up. I haven't checked to see what the calibration level is for this year. But I'm hoping that we're back to a 200 or above. I feel as though we're above, but that's just my own general understanding. But it is really kind of powerful stuff. And if anybody wants to read that book to have a deeper understanding of their own journey and how this might play out in the world, to me, it kind of gave me a really deep understanding of where all humans are. I just Googled it, Christine, because as you know, I like to ask questions. And as I was reading through the book, I was like, I wonder if it changed in 2020, because I really felt like it changed. So then I started Googling it. He does have a website. He passed away in 2015, I want to say. But he does have a website that contains a lot of his information, a lot of his teachings and whatnot. I haven't watched any videos of his, but I have now read I'll say 2 books fully of his, and I'm currently working on a third one, but I've been working on it for like 4 months, and I honestly haven't been that into it. I know that when the time is right, I'll finish reading it in its entirety. So he's got a series of 10 books, and they all work together. The only ones I've read so far is the Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, and then the Discovery of God. And that one was a huge one for me too, because God has been, essentially a part of my life, my entire life, something that I was searching for my entire life, but not really understanding why I was searching for God. And that book helped me to understand, I'm going to say, the energy of God in a deeper way than I ever even realized. And the funny thing is these books were sitting on my shelf for a few years, not getting any attention from me. I kind of forgot they existed because I was so invested in the classes that I was doing and in the trades and getting certified and everything. And yet they held a lot of the answers that I could have used during that time. But I feel like, as divinely timed as life always is, that they showed up exactly as when they needed to, so I could actually receive the information that was in them. Looking at the time, I am seeing that we're like 5 after 8 right now. So I am going to bring this to a close, but thank you to every single one of you who showed up here today, who witnessed me expressing my voice for the first time in 2.5 years, and for all of your support that you've been giving me on the Compassion with Catherine page over well, since the beginning. I so appreciate and love every single one of you, and it's always an honor to be able to connect with you, be able to express whatever's coming up with me, and to be heard in such a brilliant way. So thank you so much. Sending so much love to all of you. And if you're someone who has a story that you'd like to share, if you have a gift that you want to have heard out in the world, please get connected with me and let me bring you on for one of these. Okay? Have a great night, everyone. Sending you so much love, and keep illuminating your heart. Chat with you later. Bye-bye.